Welcome to Daily Records. I'm Tommy Burton, and I'm going to cheat today. I know we're talking about live Beatles, live solo Beatles. I don't have any live Ringo on vinyl. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to talk about Old Wave by Ringo Starr, because I want Ringo to be represented. This was the 9th album by Ringo. And the reason I picked this is just so I could talk about this a little bit. It was released on June 16th, 1983, and it came out on the label Bellephone. And this was an album that followed up Stop and Smell the Roses. And the title, Old Wave, it's a play on New Wave. Now, here's a little background on the recording, and just to talk about it for a minute. After John was killed, Ringo came back to Tittenhurst Park, which was John's former home. Watched the Imagine film, and he was really by 82. He was ready to get into his next solo project, and he wanted some consistency. And so he said, "I'm going to work with one producer." And so he called up Joe Walsh, who had was kind of figuring out what to do because the Eagles had just broken up, and they'd known each other a while, so it wasn't like they were strangers. So Joe Walsh said, sure. So they got together and started writing material. And then they started recording at the home studio there in Tittenhurst. And so it was just a very basic setup. Ringo playing drums, Joe Walsh playing guitar, Mo Foster playing bass, Gary Brooker and Chris Stanton on keyboards. And they basically, the sessions just ground to a halt because Joe Walsh and the engineer who was working with them at the time, the engineer was Jim Nipor. They went back to California, where they got back together in April and just kind of, it was very kind of a stop-start kind of thing. Now, there was a jam session around this time between John Entwistle from The Who, Ray Cooper, Eric Clapton. They got together and recorded this song, Everybody's in a Hurry But Me. And so that song came about from that. And so they just were recording off and on during this period. And so they got ready to release the thing, and it was going to be called It Beats Sleep. Took the album cover. But here's the problem. Ringo didn't have a record contract. So what do? So he needed to find a label. And so you would think Ringo Starr, just being a former Beatle, that somebody would sign him, but they weren't. And Ringo just wasn't ready to accept that. And so he was determined to release this album. It was supposed to come out on the Boardwalk label. It didn't come out because Neil Bogart passed away. And so RCA Canada ended up distributing the album in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the Netherlands, Mexico, and Brazil. And it came out on Bellephone in Germany. And so that was it. But there was no major success for the album. And so never had like a U.S. release. Just Canada was as close as it came. And because of that, it was the last thing Ringo would do for almost 10 years. 1992 is when he would finally come back. So that was it. Now there's a song on here. It was a single, In My Car, that was written by Ringo and Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh did record that song for his album Got Any Gum, and it was even a moderate hit. And so a few of the songs have snuck out, like on some of the compilations, but as an album, it never was released in the U.S. So Old Wave. Weird album that fell through the cracks. Not bad. Not a great album to be expected from Ringo, but it's a decent listen. It's not a terrible record by no means. but it's not a brilliant album either. It's okay. It's a good sort of rock sound, which is good for Ringo. So that's why Old Wave is today's Daily Record. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's Tommy Burton 75. In the meantime, I'll see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.